What's up everyone, my name is Luke and welcome back to another episode of Winning at Fantasy World Cup. Today we're going to be focusing on round 2 of the group stages. It's quite a lot to cover, but I'm going to try and condense it down into a short video because we haven't got long before that round 1 deadline or round 2 deadline passes. Okay, so really important to note, I am recording this video before the end of round 1. We still have 2 remaining games in round 1, and that is Colombia versus Japan and Senegal versus Poland. The reason for this is because if I was to record it after, I would never get enough time to record, edit and upload before that round 2 first game starts, which is tonight on the day of recording, Russia against Egypt. So just bear this in mind, some of the things that I may say. I do still have a couple of remaining players to play, and of course if you still have players in those matches as well, it could slightly change your opinion on certain things that I say, who knows. Let's get on with it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up my team on screen and I'm going to start with a quick overview of my performance, how I got on in week 1. Spoiler alert, it was absolutely shit. I'm going to talk about my thoughts on some of the players, who I want to keep, who I want to get rid of, some tips for you on players as well. After that, I'm going to be talking about transfers, captains and chips, so you can jump straight to that if you do want to. And one other thing before we move on to looking at my team, if you do like this video, if you could hit that like button, it would be very much appreciated. And subscribe with notifications on if you do want to see more of this going forward. Thank you very much. On screen now, I've pulled up my game week 1 team and it couldn't have gone much worse. It really couldn't. It's quite ironic that I'm the one here making videos called How to Win at Fantasy World Cup, and then I'm actually one of the lowest ranked players in the world, I believe, at around 570,000. It's one of them where it's so bad that I can't help but laugh at it. I did show you my draft team last week. I made a few changes to that draft team in the final hours leading up to that deadline, and pretty much every change I made went absolutely awfully. So what changes did I make? Well, I had Varela and Augustinson in defence. Both of those kept clean sheets. I got rid of those for Ramos and Hernandez, neither of which did anything. They both conceded. But that already was a terrible start in my defence, and worth noting, I actually don't have any clean sheets or returns whatsoever in my defence across Trippier, Hernandez, Miranda or Manuel Neuer. Neuer, who I did bring in for Caballero, who got 1 extra point, I believe. Maybe it was the same, I think it was 1 extra point. And funnily enough, that 1 extra point was the best result I had from any of my transfers. The other 2 that I had were Milinkovic-Savic. I took him out for Nandez. Nandez got 1 point. Milinkovic-Savic, I think, got 3. And Kane out for Griezmann. Griezmann got me 16 points as captain. You would have to assume that Kane would have been my captain as well, based on my other players' results. So he would have got 20. 4 extra points there. All in all, an absolute disaster, probably somewhere in the region of 15 to 20 points missed out on by my final tinkering. I've got 2 players left to play at the time of recording this, James Rodriguez and Yoshida. They're against each other, so if Rodriguez scores, it wipes out the clean sheet from Yoshida anyway. I'm not too confident about this week, but I am still confident going forward. Let's move on to looking at game week 2 now. First up, we're going to look at transfers. Now, I've already used my transfer. I used this today. And going forward, I would advise that you use your transfers as late in the round as possible. I've seen a lot of people using their transfer early. Just isn't advised because there's no price rises. There's no need to get in early. All you're doing is opening yourself up for risk that is completely unnecessary. And I mean completely unnecessary. There is literally no reason to make an early transfer unless you're going to forget to change your team later on in the week. And if you're the type to forget about changing your team, then you're not the right person to be watching this video because it is for fantasy lovers. How can you forget to change your team when you're checking it 50 times a day like we are? So yeah, I've used my free transfer today. My sub goalie didn't actually play, El Hadari from Egypt, so I had to get rid of him, and I bought in Matt Ryan from Australia. Not entirely thrilled by the pick, but my choices were quite limited because I only had 4.5 million to spend, and it had to be a keeper that played before Germany. You know, in all likelihood, he's going to be leaving the team in 2 game weeks anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. If you're looking at where to use your free transfer, I would look at replacing a player that hasn't played or you think probably won't play. If you've got one of those in your team, that is an easy decision. I definitely wouldn't be looking at taking -4s. I'm sure there are many people out there, particularly the gamblers, that are looking at taking -4s or more. I think this is a terrible decision. And the reason for this is because -4s, even in FPL, are hard to make a profit on, and yes, you can do it, and you can do it regularly, but most people that take hits are going to lose out overall. You've got to be a very good player to be able to make them profitably. And in this game, Fantasy World Cup, players get even less points. You don't get as many assists because the assists aren't as generous as they are in FPL. You know, things like rebounding a shot, the original shooter doesn't get the assist for that. There's no bonus points either, and there are a few other things as well. But overall, scoring points on this version of the game is much harder, so spending those points is a lot harder to make a profit on. I wouldn't advise that people take a -4 or more. Just looking at those bandwagon players, you know, that you've got the likes of Cheryshev, Golovin, Diego Costa. People are going to be trying to rush to get these players in. I don't think it's worth spending any points to do so. You've always got to remember as well that just because a player scores points, it doesn't mean they're a good pick. You could have got incredibly lucky, and lucky doesn't mean good. It just means lucky. And on the flip side of that, you could have made genuinely good picks that didn't get any points. Obviously, I'm biased and I'm going to say this, but I think Isco looked pretty fucking good in that first game, hit the crossbar. So players like him, I wouldn't be looking to get rid of them just because he only scored 2 points. Sergio Ramos in defence, he got me 1 point. They conceded 3 goals, but one of them was a penalty, one of them was a free kick, and one of them was a goalkeeping error. How many times are those 3 things all going to happen in the same game? You know, just to have a penalty scored against you is unlucky enough, but there wasn't a real open play goal scored, although there were some chances, so who knows on that. But I'm just trying to emphasise the fact that just because a player conceded or just because a player didn't score, it doesn't mean you have to get rid of them. They can still be a good pick. Look at the underlying stats. Were they conceding chances? Were they making chances? Were they having shots? Or weren't they involved at all? Was the team terrible? Are you going to give that team another chance? They're the types of things you need to think about, and not just who scored points and who didn't. One more important point to make as well: if you aren't going to make that free transfer, you will lose it, I believe. Perhaps someone can correct me in the comments below if I'm not right on this, but I think I'm right in saying the transfer does not roll over, so you need to use your first free transfer or lose it. For those of you looking at Messi versus Ronaldo, perhaps you have one and you're thinking of changing to the other, probably Messi to Ronaldo. I don't think this is necessary. Messi looked pretty good. Yes, Ronaldo got a hat-trick and Messi didn't score and missed a penalty, but I think Messi looked good. Honestly, he had 4 Icelandic players around him at all times, and there's no way Croatia, whilst they're probably a better team than Iceland are, there's no way they replicate that defensive strategy that Iceland did. And even if they tried to, there's no way they'd pull it off. I think Iceland are probably the best national team in the world at playing that game, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that. What I've done now behind me is I've pulled up my team for game week 2. As I say, I've brought in Matt Ryan, and we're going to talk about captains now. The obvious one, if you have a Russian or Egyptian player, you're going to want to captain them because they're the only team, but you are going to have to get in right before that deadline, because the deadline for this game week ends, and then you've got about an hour after that game week ends before the next one starts, I believe. So you're going to have to be there online, ready to make that change should you wish. That one's fairly obvious if you've got a Russian or Egyptian player. It doesn't matter who they are, doesn't even matter if they're good, you're going to want to be captaining them. On day 2 in the week, we've got Portugal, Uruguay and Spain, Ronaldo versus Morocco, Cavani and Suarez versus Saudi Arabia, and Isco or Diego Costa versus Iran. I only have one of these. I've got Isco, so it's an easy choice for me. But if I was to have all of those players, I think I'd be looking at Cavani. I think Cavani looked really good, and Suarez definitely didn't. And I think Saudi Arabia looked terrible. So that would be the decision I would be making on that day. However, I do only have Isco, so it's an easy choice for me. On day 3, if those captains do blank, you've got France versus Peru and Argentina versus Croatia. 2 very difficult fixtures there, but I would probably be looking towards a French player rather than an Argentine, because the jury's out for Argentina for me. They just haven't looked good in recent years. They don't gel as a team. They don't click. Something is missing, whatever it may be. I do not know. On day 4, you've got Brazil versus Costa Rica. This is the standout fixture. There's no way you're going to debate captaining anyone but a Brazilian player on this day. And it's very, very easy to look towards Neymar or Coutinho if you do have those. Now, I have Gabriel Jesus, and it's a bit of a weird situation for me because I'm not entirely sure if he's going to play or start. I think Firmino looked much better when he came on. Brazil looked better overall when he came on. So we'll have to wait and see on that if you do have Gabriel Jesus. It's a tough one. Hopefully we can get some more information closer to the time so I can make a judgment on whether I captain him, or maybe I'll just have to go for someone weird like Miranda if Jesus looks like he's not going to play. On day 5, you've got Belgium versus Tunisia and Germany against Sweden. 2 very tricky attacking fixtures, potentially at least. I would be looking towards a Belgian player here. I think Germany didn't look great. And whilst Tunisia pushed England right to the wire, I think they looked pretty bad, especially in that first half. England created a lot of chances. It could have been 4 or 5-0 at half time, or 4 or 5-1, whatever. And Belgium also created a lot of chances against Panama whilst it was still 0-0 as well. I think it's likely that Tunisia get opened up by Belgium and that they score a few goals, whereas Sweden against Germany, I think they're much more likely to put in a resilient defensive display. They're used to doing it, and they're used to doing it fairly well in recent times. On day 6, England against Panama. This is the standout fixture for me. England, they looked really, really good against Tunisia, and yes, I'm biased. First half particularly, as I've already mentioned, it could have been 4 or 5-1. Belgium also created loads of chances against Panama, and it was only due to their good goalkeeping display that it was 0-0 at half time. I can see this being an absolute rout, and it's important to remember as well that football is coming home, So that's got to weigh into some managers' mindsets as well. I want to finish up with some thoughts on chips. Now, I did talk about chips in the last video as well, but I was a little unsure on the best times to use them. I was looking a bit of theory and maths behind when would be the best time to play it, and I think that with the maximum captain and the bench boost and the wildcard as well, I think I've nailed down my strategy now. This isn't going to be the strategy that everyone plays, but I think in my head this definitely seems like the best play. So with that in mind, I will be using my maximum captain in the quarterfinals. This is because 4 teams play at the same time twice. You only get 2 chances at getting the right captain, and there are 8 teams to pick from. That is a very hard decision to make sure you get the right one. So in my head, using the maximum captain in that round, the lowest risk by far of any round, because in the other rounds, yes, in like the semi-finals, you're only going to have 2 chances, and the finals round as well. However, you're going to be loading up on players from those teams. In the quarterfinals, where you've got 8 teams worth of players potentially to be choosing from, it's very hard to make sure you get the right choice. So that's when I'm going to be using my maximum captain. The bench boost, I said in the last video I was going to do it either in the first knockout round or in the finals round, and now I'm heavily swaying towards that first knockout round, and this is for 2 reasons. And I think one of these reasons is very under the radar and not been spoken about, or I've not seen it been spoken about anywhere at all. It's something that just dawned on me this morning when I was making the notes for this video. So the obvious reason, one that many people already know, is that you get unlimited transfers at the end of the group stage. You can make as many transfers as you want, all for free, and then you can go into that first knockout round with a brand new team, basically. So if you are playing the bench boost in that round, you're going to be able to get 15 decent players. You're going to be confident enough that all 15 are going to play. You're going to know who's got good fixtures and whatnot. So making a really good team of 15 in that round is pretty easy as it is. But here's the factor that I think a lot of people have overlooked, and people that have already played their bench boost perhaps have overlooked, and that is that in this round and for the rest of the tournament therein, you get a budget of 105 million as opposed to 100. And yes, players that get through the groups are generally going to be more expensive because they're going to be from better teams. We already have players from those teams that we think are going to get through anyway, and we managed to fit them into a budget of 100. So when we get a budget of 105 and we can bench boost as well, we can invest that 5 million into extra players throughout the team. We can get a really solid bench. I think that that's going to make the team really, really strong for a bench boost. And then I'm going to be wildcarding after that round anyway, so I can look to spread the funds a little more wisely after that as well. That to me sounds like the best combination of wildcard, bench boost and maximum captain. But I'd love to know your thoughts as well, so let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you want to rip into my team and tell me how bad I'm doing or that you hate me, that's always fine. If you have enjoyed this video, then hit the like button, and if you do want to see more from me, hit that subscribe button with notifications on. You don't want to miss a video after all if you are subscribing. I hope I can see you all again in another video, and until next time, have a great day.